Hi, everyone. I'm Phil Porter. I'm one of the co-founders of InterPlay, and I'm here at InterPlace in Oakland, California, where we have our offices and we have our dance studio, and where I also live with my partner Chin upstairs in that direction. Looking forward to the opportunity to play with some of the people in Europe. I'm really grateful to Meg for her invitation to do that. And just thought I would talk a little bit about one of the things that's interesting to me in interplay, which is the idea of how we expand our range. So, when Cynthia and I started Interplay, performance was part of what we were doing. We were dancers and performers and storytellers, and we started an improvisational company at the same time we started Interplay. That company is called Wing It Performance Ensemble. And I recognize that not everyone is interested in performing all that much. Some people are, some people aren't. But what I believe is that even if you're not interested in interplay, there's value in the process of expanding our range, whether it's in movement or telling stories or singing. And my belief about that is that if we have more possibilities, if we have more range, we have more territory to learn from. So if we just kind of behave in this narrow band of our physicality, we'll learn what we can learn in that. But if we expand that, we get access to new information. So even if you're not interested in performing all that much, I think there's value in looking at what are the possibilities. And it's just for me, it's one of the wonderful parts of creativity is to see what we can make. I'm just interested in making things. So I'm just going to do a couple of little things. In movement, one of the things that I like to play with is what I call spice. So contrast is a really wonderful thing to play with when you're creating things. If you do something in one way for a while, to do something that's completely different actually then makes that first thing show up even more. So if you have a big painting of red and you put just a little bit of green in there, it makes the red redder. So let's say, for example, that we're starting with slow movement, smooth and slow. So we might do that for a bit. And it's good to remember when you're doing smooth and slow that you don't need to stay on your spot. You can actually move around. It's also good to remember that you can go backwards as well as side to side and forward when you're moving. So we just have a little bit of slow and smooth. But what then if we add just a little bit of thrust as we're playing? So mostly we're doing slow and smooth, but every once in a while we throw in a little bit of thrust. Not a lot, it doesn't have to be a lot. That's what we call it spice. But it just adds a little bit of contrast. It's something to play with, and it kind of pushes us out of our normal way of moving, perhaps, or just gives us a different possibility there. So that's the idea of spice. That anything you're doing, you might include just a little bit of the opposite to make the first thing even show up even more. So on the storytelling side of it, one of the things we might play with, like when I'm teaching storytelling classes, sometimes what I have people do is, first of all, experiment with telling stories in really short sentences. This morning, I was in a group. It was a wonderful, very, very playful group. Lots of laughing, lots of joking around. We were playing with the idea of mischief. Mischief. Messing. Trying things. Being our evil twin. Whatever that might be. So we can be playing with just little short sentences. Then I have people play around with doing really long run-on sentences. So something might be like, Oh yeah, this morning I was in a group. It was led by someone else. I wasn't leading. It was really nice, not even just to be the leader, but it was really fun. And we were playing around with the idea of mischief, which it turns out is a really wonderful thing to play with. It's like looking at the things where we're just kind of a little bit, kind of like that, doing stuff and stuff like that, and doing something that's a little bit different. And maybe we got into trouble, and maybe we got away with it, and maybe it wasn't really different. And art can be like a mischief making. It can be like disruptive or interruptive, or just giving something a different kind of idea. So there's kind of a whole run-on thing. So then what happens if we try to kind of combine those two things, short sentences and long sentences? So it might be something like mischief, playmates. It was really interesting to be in a group of people this morning playing around with the idea of mischief, because there are, just so many different sides to it. It's like interruption, or maybe causing trouble, or getting out of a rut. I was a good boy. I didn't create a lot of mischief. But I have to confess, there are a couple of points in my life where I was hanging around with people who were creating some mischief, and I was kind of right there on the sidelines, sometimes playing around with it, sometimes not, ooh. I didn't get in too much trouble. So there you can see what it might look like to tell a story where you're playing around with the short sentences and the long sentences, and then combining the two. And I have to confess that in interplay we're often doing two things at once. We're coming up with the content, like I have to be kind of thinking about the story or having the story, and then I might be just a little bit aware of the way that I'm telling the story, which is a slightly different process. So those are just a couple of examples of way that you might expand your range a little bit. And by doing so, you might discover new things you might tell your story differently, might get new information, as well as just the interest it might create for your witness or for your audience. So anyway, a couple of things. I'm hoping to play with some of you. And even if not, I'm really glad to be connected with you all. And I'm glad to know that people are playing all over the place. So thank you very much.